All right, welcome back to the SportsMax Zone. It's time now to talk some football. Jamaica's senior Reggae Boyz will be looking to overturn a 1-0 deficit against USA in tonight's second leg encounter of the CONCACAF Nations League at Energizer Park in St. Louis, Missouri. Head coach Steve McLaren is hoping that their good away form and fight can get them over the line.
I said to the team, we go here with belief is so important. The process, tactics, everything. But if you don't believe you can win, don't bother turning up. So we have to believe. That's the first thing. We have to have the confidence to do that. And it doesn't matter if we concede a goal because we know that we need to score two. So we have to be ambitious, and creative. We've done that in away games. We've been solid. We've defended well. And on transitions, been very good. That's why we won in Nicaragua and we won in Honduras. And when I reflect on the game a year ago, when 2-1 down against Canada and go to Canada and win 3-2, you know, there's resilience in this team. There's resilience in this squad. That becomes more apparent, and you see that more in away games. And that's what I've seen in the two away games that we've had. I want to see that tomorrow. The resilience, hard to beat, the work rate. When you see, I watched Honduras, Mexico. Wow, game of real intensity, real aggression. And that's what we have to be. We have to learn and do that. That's what we've been doing away from home. We have to do it here tomorrow. Most definitely. We have to start very well. We have to be on the front foot. And we have players in our squad that can win games. And so if we do our job defensively, we expect our match winners to win the game for us.
Meanwhile, USA's head coach Mauricio Pochettino says the expectations should be higher because of who they are.
We are USA, and we need to perform and we need to win games. That is our culture. I think I understood after few days or few weeks or few months, I understand that the culture here is about to win and to increase that pressure, and that expectation is going to put us in a very uncomfortable zone that is not only to go and to play, it's to go to compete and win, and that is completely different, the build-up of the games and the approach of the games. We know very well we need to translate the trust and the confidence to the player, but in the same time knowing that we are USA and we need to perform.
Well, you can watch live coverage of this significant matchup on SportsMax and the SportsMax app starting at 8 p.m. 9 ECT. Well, Liz J. Williams joins us in studio. Liz, you will be on commentary tonight. You was on commentary on the Jamaica leg as well against USA. So I think you're the right person to sit in studio with me today. Let's start by talking about areas from the last game, Liz, that you would have noticed. And I know you came on the show and you outlined all of them. You came with your notes and everything. But for our viewers that are tuned in, and they probably missed that show, areas heading into tonight that, of course, the Reggae Boyz will need to tighten up on.
Yeah, I think the first leg was a very tactical one. Both coaches came with different approaches than what we would have been used to. After watching the first two USA games under Pochettino against both Panama and Mexico, USA favored more of a wing play approach where they tried to overload that area of the pitch. Against Jamaica, they tried to overload centrally. I'm not sure if it was because Jamaica had switched from their usual 4-at-the-back system to a 3-at-the-back system to try and exploit the USA on transition. But I think USA did a good job generally of overloading those central areas, and Jamaica allowed them, especially in the first half, to have too much space in those areas. That's where the goal came from. If you notice, Cardozo had all the time in the world to pick the pass. Pulisic had all the time in the world to take the ball and turn. And, you know, obviously it's something really small. It's a minuscule, simple pass. And it is a pass that many footballers can't execute, but the weight of that pass was so perfect for Pulisic. If you were to see it here, it's right to his strong foot. Pulisic could have done anything he wanted with that pass. He could have played a wall pass back to Cardozo. He could have taken the ball and played it wide. He could have taken the ball and turned. And that's exactly what he did into acres of space, because as I said, Jamaica changed their formation, not necessarily their tactical approach, because the final shape of the team was still practically the same 3-1-6, 3-2-5 shape, but the space in between the lines when defending, because their defensive shape had changed, I think it caused a lot of havoc, especially earlier in the game. That's what caused Damian Lowe to be much more aggressive and step out on Pulisic, creating the space for Pepe to be played in behind. That's what caused Greg Lee to be staying a bit deeper in that wing-back role, trying to block off the wide areas. So I think it's going to be another tactical game, and I think for Jamaica to improve, they will have to try and find a balance between stopping the USA and trying to play their natural game, which is a transitional one. And for the USA, I think they would need to try and control the middle areas better with more progressive passes as opposed to carries.
Yeah, one of the players I was looking forward to see mainly come into the setup would have been Mikel Antonio. After watching the first leg, I felt like, he would have been a good fit for the areas that were lacking, right? He's out because I don't know how you lose your passport, along with little Kime Dixon. I'm yet to send him a message and find out how that happened. 2 players out, 2 players that I was looking forward to see. What say you when you say that word tactical?
I think that Antonio and Steve McLaren are pretty much a really good match because of the style of football that Steve McLaren loves to play. He loves a physical striker that can hold up the ball well and bring others into play. So I think that Antonio is a miss for Steve McLaren, but I do think that Shamar Nicholson adds a lot of that same energy and ability to hold up the ball well. So I think that's not a huge miss.
Okay.
It is a miss because Antonio is obviously a player of quality, but it's not a huge miss tactically because the profile of Antonio and Shamar Nicholson is very similar. And then when it comes on to Kaheem Dixon, he didn't feature in the first game, and he's more of an impact player off the bench, and they brought in Corey Bennett. So I think that based on the fact that Cephas and other players are in the squad that can come off the bench and impact, I think tactically it won't have a big impact on tonight's proceedings, but it is a pretty baffling story. But hopefully Jamaica can overcome those losses and get something positive going in attack, because in a lot of instances, especially before Tyreek McGee came on, I do think that they were lacking in the final third a bit.
Yeah, and the long-lost Ravel Morrison, I didn't see him for a while feature for the Jamaica Reggae Boyz. A lot of questions surrounding, what happened. Then coach kind of explained today he had to play for a club in order to get the game time and to represent Jamaica. Ravel is back into the setup, exciting player. I mean, a player of quality. But when it comes to impacting the Reggae Boyz team, I want a quick comment before I pass over to Ricardo on Ravel coming in, and then the new one, Corey Bennett.
I think Corey Bennett is just like a like-for-like type of player in high school. I remember even Corey Bennett from prep school. He was always a talented goal scorer. When it comes down to Ravel now, that could impact Jamaica a lot tactically if he's fit enough to immediately go into such a hostile environment in the USA and get a start. I'm not quite sure. Is Coach Steve McLaren willing to sacrifice defensive solidity for playing Ravel Morrison in the midfield? I'm also not quite sure, but one thing is for sure, 2 things are for certain. Jamaica certainly lacked ball handling in the midfield area. And before, when Jamaica played Honduras, I remember coming on the show and I said that I wasn't too critical of the strikers and the forward players because they weren't getting the ball. And one thing I neglected to say was that a lot of that was a tactical issue because Jamaica didn't have a player to play in the hole and the pivot, and none of the players that Jamaica had there were not naturally occupy those zones, so they were struggling. Well, Steve McLaren fixed that for the first 75 minutes of the USA game and then went on to unfix it. So for the first 75 minutes or so, Jamaica were building up with their 3 defenders and 2 pivots. He subbed on Isaac Hayden, and the pivot at that point was Isaac Hayden and Joel Latibodiere. It was still fine. There was a 15-minute, 20-minute period in the second half where Jamaica were extremely dominant, getting the ball into dangerous areas and creating a few half chances. I'm not sure what Steve McLaren saw and his coaching staff saw, but they saw that as an opportunity to then try and compound that by adding an extra body to the attacking line. Now, that was a very, very bad idea. What they then did was take Hayden out of the build-up phase, and you both of you guys watched the game, so you would have noticed this. Especially you, Myra, you were in the stadium, so you would have seen between the 80th and the 87th minute, up until Holgate got sent off,
Yeah.
you would have seen Jamaica having the ball around the back for like 5 minutes and cannot make a forward
That
pass.
was so stressful.
And the fans are booing and everything. All of that came from a tactical switch, which McLaren did to try and have more players on the forward line, yes. But that was at the sacrifice of midfield solidity and midfield ability. And that gave USA the numerical advantage when they were high pressing or in their mid-block. And it was just extremely unbalanced, and that created so many problems. Ravel Morrison, naturally, because of the player that he is, he's able to find spaces, and he's also most importantly able to play progressive passes. So he can fix that issue. But whether or not he is fit enough to play a full 90, whether or not Steve McLaren is willing to sacrifice defensive solidity to play him in the midfield, that's another issue. But he is someone that can add that ability to move the ball forward without carries.
All right, well, you know, Steve McLaren did speak about the Ravel Morrison selection. I was, in fact, not very surprised that Morrison had been called up to the team, because at the last camp, Steve McLaren spoke about him as well, and the fact that he really liked him as a player. And I thought that was Steve McLaren saying this guy will be part of the setup pretty soon. But let's hear what he had to say yesterday in response to Ravel's inclusion.
I'm always looking out for good players and players who can make a difference, handle the ball, big game players. And Ravel has always been one of them. I worked with him for 2 years at Derby County, and I got to know him well. I like him. He's got a great personality and a big talent, unbelievable talent. He wasn't picked before because he wasn't playing. All of a sudden, he gets a club in Dubai and he's playing very well. From my reports over there, scoring goals, assisting. And I think this is a perfect game and a perfect opportunity for Ravel to come into the squad. This is a big game. And whether he starts or whether he comes on, he's one of them players who can win a game of football.
Bugsman.
Yeah, so there you have it from the coach himself, saying that he thinks this is a perfect game for Ravel Morrison to come into the squad. And Leger Williams, I don't think disagrees too much, but based on what the coach said, do you think your question has been answered as to whether Ravel will play tonight at some point, either starting or coming on?
Yeah, he definitely has to come on. And I think one thing that, because a lot of people were very negative, a lot of the fans were very negative after the performance. I think the performance against USA was all right, because one thing, when you're analyzing a game, obviously most people, if you're a fan of a club, you don't go to the game to analyze it. You go to it to enjoy it, and you go to it to watch your team win and put on a good performance. Now, analyzing the game, you have to ask the question, very important question, why? Why did Steve McLaren switch to a 3 at the back? Because he anticipated the USA to dominate the wide areas. He was trying to nullify that. Did it work out well? Not necessarily, because when Jamaica switched to a 4 at the back, they were much better. Why didn't he start Tariq Magee? Well, Tariq Magee doesn't generally have the motor and the defensive nous to do the hard yards, especially at the start of the game, and especially how physical it would be in the midfield. But Tariq Magee made a huge impact when he came on, because one thing that Magee helped in, and I think Ravel will help in as well, if he were to start or come on or anything tonight, is ball retention. Not only deeper on the pitch, but also higher up, because a statistic that I saw was pretty damning. As I said, it was a very even game. Jamaica had 60 final third entries, which is a carry or a pass into the final 33 yards of the pitch. USA had 51. Very even game. But one thing that stood out to me, the USA completed 67% of their passes when they got into that zone. Jamaica only completed 41%. And of that 41%, that percentage went up from 34 to 41 after Magee came on. So that was indicative that Jamaica had too many, I like to call them PMP, pace and power, bang-bang players in the final third, just wanting to get that final action off as quickly as possible. In the final third, you need those players that are looking to recycle the ball and wait for the right moment to get their final actions off. And I think both Magee and Ravel Morrison adds that to the level of bang-bang players that we have up front when I speak about Shamar Nicholson, Leon Bailey, Demar Gray, who always just want to get that shot off or get that pass off. So I think that level of control is what they will add and should add to the team tonight.
Yeah, Mason Holgate out with a red card. Based on what you saw from the first match, will we be missing much?
No, not at all. I think that they were. I understand why he plays McLaren, because a lot of it comes down to a coach's trust. And Mason Holgate would be someone that Steve McLaren would have known from his time in England. Holgate was highly thought of when he was younger. And, you know, I've learned, and I'll say it anyway, I don't think Mason Holgate is a very good player anymore. He was highly thought of when he was younger. Doesn't add anything that, in all honesty, a Richard King or a Deshaun Bernard wouldn't add to the setup. But as I said, it's down to the coach's trust. And he trusted Holgate, and Holgate let him down against Honduras. I'll give him a little blight because that was his first game of the season. Why you're starting someone and it's their first game of the season for the national team, I'm not quite sure. But then he came against the USA, pretty much the same performance, was decent when he was called upon to press higher up. But I think generally his defensive ability, athleticism, and ball playing, most importantly, made the team suffer a bit because he just couldn't progress the ball at all. So I don't think the team misses much. They might even improve with his absence.
Yeah, we have to go now from this segment, but your prediction in 10 seconds.
Oof, I think the USA will still go through. I can't give a scoreline right now.
No, but I'm asking you to give one. That's your job. Prediction guru.
I thought his job was to analyze.
No, he loves to call himself the prediction guru.
That's a hobby. That's not something you would ever get paid for.
What did you say? 1-0?
I'll say 2 on the USA.
2-1. All right. Okay, well, viewers, Monday's night, the second leg quarterfinal game will feature Panama versus Costa Rica at 9 p.m., 10 p.m. ECT on SportsMax. Plus, quarterfinal action continues on Tuesday with Canada hosting Suriname at 7:30 p.m., 8:30 p.m. ECT on SportsMax, and Mexico looking for redemption against Honduras at 9:30 p.m., 10:30 p.m. ECT, also on SportsMax. All right, break time.